Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Bhagavate
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text number 16, First Step in God Realization. Text 16, word for word. Grihat Pravarjito Dira Punya Tirtha Jalaplutaha Shucho Vivikta Asino Vihivat Kalpitasane Grihat Pravarjito Dhira Punyatirtha Jalaplutaha Shucho Vivikta Asino Vidhivat Kalpitasane Grihat Pravarjito Dhira Punyatirtha Jalaplutaha Shucho Vivikta Asino Vidhivat Kalpitasane Grihat Pravarjito Dhira Punyatirtha Jalaplutaha Shucho Vivikta Asino Vidhivat Kalpitasane
Grihat Pravarjito Dhira Punyatirtha Jalaplutaha Shucho Vivikta Asino Vidhivat Kalpitasane
Grihat Pavrajito Dira
Griha pravarjito dira
Punyatirtha Jala Pluta
Punyatirtha jala plutaha
Sucho Vivikta Asino
Shucho vivikta asino
Vijivat Kalpitasane
Viva kalpitasane
Grihat Pravarjito Dira
Grihat pravarjito dira
Punyatirtha Jala Plutaha
Punyatirtha jala plutaha
Shucho Vivikta Asino
Shucho vivikta asino
Vidhivat Kalpitasane
Viva kalpitasane
Grihat Pravrajito Dira
Griha pravarjito dira
Punyatirtha Jala Plutaha
Punyatirtha jala plutaha
Shocho Vivikta Asino
Shucho pravikta asino
Vidhivat Kalpitasane
Viva kalpitasane
Griha Pravrajito Dhira
Pravarjito dira
Punyatirtha Jala Plutaha
Punyatirtha jala plutaha
Shucho Vivikta Asino
Shucho vivikta asino
Vidhivat Kalpitasane
Viva kalpitasane
Grihat Pravrajito Dira
Grihat pravarjito dira
Punyatirtha Jala Plutaha
Punyatirtha jala plutaha
Sucha Vivikta Asino
Shucho vivikta asino
Vidhivat Kalpitasane
Vidhivat kalpitasane
Grihat Pravrajito Dira
Griha pravarjito dira
Punatirtha Jala Pluta
Punyatirtha jala plutaha
Shucho Vivikta Asino
Shucho vivikta asino
Dirivat Kalpitasane
Viva kalpitasane. Word for word. Grihat from one's home. Pravarjitaha having gone out. Dhiraha self-controlled. Punya pious. Tirtha sacred place. Jala aplutaha fully washed. Shucho cleansed. Vivikte solitary. Asinaha seated. Vidhivat according to regulations. Kalpita having done. Asane on a sitting place. Translation and purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One should leave home and practice self-control. In a sacred place, he should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place, duly sanctified. So, Shukadev Goswami, yes, speaking. Shukadev Goswami, he's speaking, right? Yes, Shukadev Goswami speaking. Speaking about what one should do at the last stage of life, which he mentions in the previous verse. The last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough to not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. One should leave home and practice self-control, and say in a sacred place he should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place, duly sanctified. Purport. To prepare oneself for the better next life, one must get out of one's so-called home. The system of Varnashram Dharma or Sanatana Dharma prescribes retirement from family encumbrances as early as possible after one is past 50 years of age. Modern civilization is based on family comforts, the highest standard of amenities, and therefore after retirement, everyone expects to live a very comfortable life in a well-furnished home decorated with fine ladies and children, without any desire to get out of such a comfortable home. High government officers and ministers stick to their prized posts until death, and they neither dream nor desire to get out of homely comforts. Bound by such hallucinations, materialistic men prepare various plans for a still more comfortable life. But suddenly, cruel death comes without mercy and takes away the great plan maker against his desire, forcing him to give up the present body for another body. Such a plan maker is thus forced to accept another body and one of the 8,400,000 species of life, according to the fruits of the work he has performed. In the next life, persons who are too much attached to family comforts are generally awarded lower species of life on account of sinful acts performed during a long duration of sinful life, and thus all the energy of the human life is spoiled. In order to be saved from the danger of spoiling the human form of life and being attached to unreal things, one must take warning of death at the age of 50, if not earlier. The principle is that one should take it for granted that the death warning is already there, even prior to the attainment of 50 years of age, and thus at any stage of life, one should prepare himself for a better next life. The system of the Sanatana Dharma institution is so made that the follower is trained for the better next life without any chance that the human life will be spoiled. The holy places all over the world are meant for the residential purposes of retired persons getting ready for a better next life. Intelligent persons must go there at the end of life, and for that matter, after 50 years of age, to live a life of spiritual regeneration for the sake of being freed from family attachment, which is considered to be the shackle of material life. One is recommended to quit home just to get rid of material attachment, because one who sticks to family life until death cannot get rid of material attachment. As long as one is materially attached, one cannot understand spiritual freedom. One should not, however, become self-complacent simply by leaving home or by creating another home at the holy place, either lawfully or unlawfully. Many persons leave home and go to such holy places, but due to bad association, again become family men by illicit connection with the opposite sex. The illusory energy of matter is so strong that one is apt to be under such illusion at every stage of life, even after quitting one's happy home. Therefore, it is essential that one practice self-control by celibacy without the least desire for sex indulgence. For a man desiring to improve the condition of his existence, sex indulgence is considered suicidal or even worse. Therefore, to live apart from family life means to become self-controlled in regard to all sense desires, especially sex desires. The method is that one should have a duly sanctified sitting place made of straw, deerskin, and carpet, and thus on it one should chant the holy name of the Lord without offense as prescribed above. The whole process is to drag the mind from material engagements and fix it on the lotus feet of the Lord. This simple process alone will help one advance to the highest stage of spiritual success. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyanagacchana Shalakaya Chakshurumunitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. One should leave home and practice self-control in a sacred place. He should bathe regularly and sit down in a lonely place duly sanctified. So Shukadeva Swami is explaining what retirement should be like. And we see that today's world, as Prabhupada mentions, retirement for people is, they're hoping to make so much money so that in their earlier years, so that when they're able to retire, then they can just enjoy life without having to work. But actually we see that in many cases this doesn't really work out, because if you go to certain stores like Home Depot, Walmart, various places, you see older people working there. And they may have had a good job previously in their previous life, but due to circumstances, now they got to go back to work and they're working part-time for Home Depot or Walmart or something. Or you see older people at casinos a lot, and they go traveling a little bit. Or some of them are even working up until the age of 70 years old, like some of my family members. One of my grandpa still owns his own business, painting business. He works every day pretty much, and he's just working hard still at those elderly ages. So even though more or less the physical energy in the body is very much decreasing for these people in their elderly years, still they go on working, and basically to keep the comforts of life, sustaining their comforts of life, and for their family, or like my family member works so hard for his family. So he likes to work because, that's sort of his nature, is Shudra. But he also likes to provide things for his family. He likes to take them out to eat and, take them on vacation and things like that. So he's working so hard for those moments of happiness with the family. So this is the situation, but the problem is that there's no preparation for the next life. There's no, they're investing so much in material things and so-called material comforts, but it's not actually investing for the next life, future life, for their spiritual life. And that's a problem. So then Prabhupada makes point that they're most likely will be gliding down to lower species. Now, fortunately for my grandpa, if I can become a pure devotee, then he can become free from such hellish life. But this is the case in most people, is that they will be awarded lower species on account of their sinful lives, because in this world, there's not really there's not a life free of sin here in this material world, especially here, maybe in the heavenly planets, but not here on earth. And today's age, there's no freedom from sinful life unless you're a devotee of the Lord, because it's a society of Ugra karma. There's so much karmic activity going on, so many sinful acts, so much contamination of sinful acts. One great example is just the meat industry. Many people, the meat industry is connected to so many things, like food, food products, hair products, various soaps and etc. So many things have animal product in it. So you're you are involved, in that.
Accomplice.
Yeah, accomplice. There's another word here. Anyway, you're accomplices, and you're involved in those reactions. So it's a precarious position to be in this society. But for a devotee, they can make great progress, and they can free themselves from all these sinful reactions by performing devotional service. And then if one follows a varnashram system, then when they retire, then they can fully focus on spiritual life, which is difficult to do. We see it's difficult for devotees to fully retire and just go live in a holy place, but some people do it, and they make great progress. Like Vrindavan, there's many Vrindavan Mayapur, there's many senior devotees there. We're focusing on their spiritual life. So, I remember when I was younger too, I was thinking, okay, what am I going to be doing when I'm older? Just thinking about that. And when I'm in my elderly years, then I look towards, my grandparents and other people, and it's like, okay, I could play golf, I could rent I could buy an RV and travel, I can do these things, and that was like it, it's like very limited. But now looking into Krishna consciousness, there's so much opportunity, because even in elder age, you can still perform many services to Krishna that are valuable for this movement, and Krishna also gives you that kind of energy to perform service and can empower you. Just like we see many devotees that are elderly, they're still doing they may be doing even more service than a 25-year-old devotee. And they may be like 50 or 60 years old. They're doing way much more physical activity, which is inconceivable. But they're detached from the bodily concept, and Krishna is empowering them with so much energy to perform service. Of course, we see Prabhupada was the highest example. In the later years of 7 years old, he's still traveling around the world and physically performing things which devotees would say that they could hardly keep up with Prabhupada on morning walks. 20-year-olds could hardly keep up with Prabhupada's pace on morning walks, etc. So that's something to look forward to as we progress in devotional service. Then it's not like our service will decrease, it will actually increase. We'll become more Krishna conscious, and in some cases we might be able to do a lot more for Krishna. So we have to somehow or other maintain that desire to serve Krishna and perform devotional service throughout our life. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, Bhakta friend?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. When Srila Prabhupada says that we can use anything in Krishna consciousness, all right, I'll reword it. Maybe you could talk on Srila Prabhupada saying we can use anything in Krishna consciousness, and how the devotee can always be situated in Krishna consciousness no matter where they are.
Using anything in Krishna consciousness. Yeah, dovetailing anything in Krishna consciousness, there's different levels of understanding and practicing that, because you could say, because there are things that are unfavorable according to the Shastra that you can't use in devotional service. But then there's even that, there's like lower ways of dovetailing. Like, for example, we know that intoxication is not favorable for devotional service. It's something to avoid, and when one takes initiation, then they avoid that. But then there was some example where I think it was a Prabhupada story about somebody drinking wine, and then somehow or other think of Krishna when you drink that, because Krishna says Rasaham apsukonteya, Krishna is a taste of water. So even if you're performing sinful acts, somehow or other think of Krishna, But of course, that's not favorable. But it's favorable in one sense, if that's the best they could do. But for us, like coming to devotional service and being able to perform this kind of austerity and rise to a higher standard, then we want to avoid those things. But there's certain things that we may have, which we have conditioning for, certain material desires or whatever. Just go on seeing how you can connect it to Krishna and serve Krishna with that. Just like it's mentioned here, there's sex desire, and so This is something that is the background of material existence. So you can dovetail it, or you can use it in Krishna service, meaning you can become a grihasta and you can raise Krishna conscious children like this. So then it's actually according to religious principles. So the whole thing is, if we have something that we're like you have some example of how do I utilize this in Krishna service, this particular thing, then we can look to Shastra, we can see if it's there, or we can look to the sadhus and ask them, how do I have these desires, or I have this propensity to do this, how could I utilize this in Krishna service, like that, and then they can help you see how you can do it in a favorable way.
For example, someone who's involved in the meat industry, he can use that same propensity to deal with animals and give protection to the animals. Arrange for them, for the cow protection, go raksha. There's examples of that where someone's, instead of, he's dealing with animals, he's dealing with cows, killing them. Now you can turn around and protect them, understand what their real value is. When Prabhupada says you can use everything, that may be taken literally, and sometimes it can be taken that he means that you like to do something, you're keeping busyness. So you can keep busy in Krishna conscious activities as well. It's like he's busy what the scores are on the football games, he knows all. So he can be busy in so many other activities, keeping track of who's distributing the most books and different things. These are competition, but transcendental competition.
No.
If he's accustomed to a life of mundane competition, he can turn that around by competing with the materialists. Materialists are trying very hard to turn all the young generation towards the same activities that they've done. So he can use his tendency to compete, to defeat others, to defeat Maya, to defeat the material energy.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That was nice.
Then I was wondering, are we in retired life as brahmacharis if we stay the course? Is this retired life?
Well, we're in student life, but we're being trained in that consciousness of retired life. That's like Prabhupada saying in the purport, the principle is that one should take it for granted that death warning is already there even prior to the attainment of 50 years of age, and thus at any stage of life one should prepare himself for a better next life. So that's more or less what's happening, is that the brahmachari is receiving knowledge from Guru and the Shastra and practicing, preparing for next life, being trained in devotional service, trained in sadhana, gaining knowledge about this world and hearing about why one should be detached from material things, and then one's practicing being detached from material things. Right? So then, for one who is able to sustain that detachment, then they can just go on. They don't have to enter family life. But one who is sensing that they have attachments and like that, and then they want to use it, they want to dovetail those things in Krishna service, then they change to the next ashram. But ultimately, the whole principle is to ultimately become detached from this material world. And that happens naturally by the performance of devotional service. By serving Krishna, then Vasudeva, then one gains knowledge and detachment from this world. So yeah, more or less one is considered to be in the renounced order of life. That's what, as a brahmachari in the brahmachari ashram. So that means there's certain etiquette to follow and certain things to practice. But it's in the practicing stage. It's not like a final thing. The final thing is sannyas, where you're vowing no more attachment to this material world, mind, body, speech. I'm fully focused on devotional service. So, but for the brahmachari, they have the ability to change ashram. But for the sannyasi, they're supposed to stick the course of sannyas. Of course, they might have difficulties and change ashram again. And that's okay if one just continues on devotional service. Prabhupada gave that kind of concession. You know, it's better just to continue serving Krishna in another ashram than not serving Krishna, even if one falls down as a sannyasi. But it's supposed to be a final vow, and that's what Maharaj Parikshit did. Right? He was a kshatriya, king of the world, and he took sannyas more or less. He went to the bank of the Ganges and gave up his kingdom and fully focused on devotional service. So it's interesting to consider what one should do at the end of their lives, coming towards the end of their lives. One has to see how they can perform devotional service in those later years of life, and this is a traditional, could say that there's a principle that one should leave, their homely comforts. One should leave that life and fully devote their energy to serving Krishna at the end of their life. So one has to see how they can apply that in time, place, and circumstance, which I think where it's developing in ISKCON. It's not like there's to my observation, there doesn't seem to be a very clear, like, organized method of how to do those things, right? But certain initiatives and projects are being developed for this. Yes, Magadari, do you have a question?
For some reason, I've been thinking a lot about this asana thing. I've always been wondering how to purify an asana.
How to purify an asana?
Yeah, like Prabhupada is saying, one should, and he uses that language, which I thought was really interesting. He said one should take a seat, deerskin, a straw, deerskin carpet, and duly sanctified. And so I'm just wondering if there's mantras for that, or there's like certain process to sanctify a sitting place before we chant on it.
Mm-hmm. In deity worship, one sanctifies certain paraphernalia that they use to worship the deity with certain mantras. So it is there in the Narada Pancharatra, but I actually don't know what the mantra is or what the mantras are for that particular thing. Of course, we don't hear about it in the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and certain teachings of Srila Prabhupada, because these instructions are meant for another age, more or less. Our main thing is chanting Hare Krishna, no fat heart or fast rules. Of course, these things can help our mind be more clear and pure, but it's not really focused on so much. So You can look it up. I'm sure it's you can sniff it out somewhere. You can find it. Yes, Radhastali?
Hare Krishna. I just had a quick comment. I like that you were speaking about practicing Krishna consciousness at an older age. I actually was thinking of my friend in New Vrindavan. She's serving in one of the offices there with their finances and other things. Actually, she does a lot. She helps with a lot of like devotee care and things like that as well. But she started practicing maybe like 3 or so years ago, and she's in her 70s. And she's now initiated by Giriraj Maharaj and is really like happily practicing. And I was thinking about how, it really doesn't matter what age that we begin practicing, because we don't know where we left off in our past lives if we were practicing. And so I just wanted to like put some encouragement out there for those who are listening who might be older, like older than 70 or so, because it really, like, you could be a pure devotee in a moment and quicker than that. And we could prepare like at any moment. And so, yes, it's fortunate that we're like in younger bodies. Like a lot of older devotees have told me this, like, oh, you're so young, like you have so much time to like practice, but actually that might not be true. I could leave my body tomorrow or any moment. And so, like we all have this opportunity to be grateful for like what we're given, and just take as much as we can in every moment and accept ourselves where we are. So I liked how you were talking about that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, there's a quote by Prabhupada that I think it's in Bhagavad Gita, explaining that from whatever moment you understand the importance of devotional service, not depending on age, but at whatever age you understand it, the severity of it, and you practice with that sincerity, then you have the potential to achieve perfection in that life. So, yeah, I mean, in one sense, in one sense, it's more difficult to perform devotional service, materially speaking, in older age, because one is more conditioned by this world. But then in another sense, they might just be totally fried out with the material world, and their whole mission in life is, they're able to have that fixedness on devotional service because they have already, done everything in the material world, and they just want to focus on Krishna consciousness. And they do that, for whatever 10 more years that they have in their body, and then possibly go back to Godhead. And then when one's younger, we might have some up and down periods in our devotional service throughout the years. And so then it's like, what's more favorable? But the thing is we've come into devotional service either young or old. So then the point is to try to practice as best we can and do the best we can with the circumstances we're given. Well, yeah, in one sense, it's all bright side, because of course, ideally we go back to Godhead in this life, or we perfect this life. But if not, Krishna still protects us in the next life. He'll give us he'll give us a favorable situation to perform devotional service next lifetime. So these are some points. Yes, Prabhu? You're going to make that comment?
I was just going to tell a little short story. Radha and I were traveling around at some point, and I had talked to my parents, and my mom had mentioned, she said, you guys are living like retired folks. You're traveling around, you don't have a job. Like, I think about it now, and I'm like, well, she never reached retirement age. She left her body. So how valid is that, Like we have to practice Krishna consciousness now, and if we're doing devotional service and part of that's traveling, so be it, you know. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.